Welcome to Family History Mysteries, a podcast that tells the stories uncovered through family history research, the unexpected stories of everyday people. I am an avid family historian who has been compiling my family tree for over 15 years, with nearly 20,000 people recorded in my trees. And please put a review on my podcast. That will certainly help in getting the word out there and creating more listenership. Shorts episode number 17. Alice Adeline Cook. Alice Adeline Cook was born Alice Adeline Woodbry. She was known as Dolly and was born in Tenterfield, New South Wales in 1898 to Peter James Woodbry, known as Bert, a bootmaker, and later a lamplighter, and Agnes Elizabeth Kilgore. She was one of 10 children. She first featured as a 16-year-old in the Tamworth Daily Observer on the 18th of November 1914. Young girl arrested, alleged disobedience of summons. A neatly attired and rather good-looking girl named Alice Adeline Woodbry, 16, was charged at the Tamworth Police Court yesterday by warrant issued from the Tenterfield bench with having disobeyed a summons for fraudulent conversion of goods valued at £5 and 5 shillings, the property of Elsie May Holly. Senior Constable Vidler deposed that about 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, he arrested the accused at West Tamworth in pursuance of the warrant produced. On the 21st of October, he saw the girl at her mother's residence when he said to her, "Did you know a girl named Elsie Holly at Tenterfield?" The witness added that she'd missed certain articles. The accused replied, "She gave me 2 dresses in exchange for a black hat, which I gave her." The accused took 2 dresses produced from her hamper and gave them to the witness. These articles answered the description of those supplied by the Tenterfield police. The accused added, "I never saw the pendant or chain. I know nothing about them." The witness asked for a remand to Tenterfield, where the witnesses resided. A remand was granted accordingly. And 5 days later in the Tamworth Daily Observer, young girl arrested in Tamworth. The case was dealt with at the Tenterfield Court, and the following report in connection therewith is taken from the Tenterfield Star. This was an adjourned case in which Elsie May Holly charged Alice Woodbry with stealing 2 dresses and a pendant. At last court, neither party appeared when called. A warrant was then issued to bring the defendant from Tamworth, and she now appeared under arrest. The accused had admitted to the arresting constable that she had the dresses but not the pendant, and said that one dress was given to her and the other in exchange for a hat. She had been told she need not attend. Prosecutors said that she exchanged a pair of shoes for a hat but nothing else. She went to that popular resort, Lyceum, picture show on the 17th of October, and on going home put her pendant on a table in her room. On the Sunday, she missed it. On the morning of that day, she said, accused was in her room and that evening went to Tamworth. The next day, she missed the 2 dresses and saw the police, and information was laid. She afterwards told the police that she would rather see the case settled out of court because of the way it was messed up. The witness herself got rather messed up as to dates, mixing up the date of the picture show visit with that of the day for the attendance at court. After hearing the evidence for the defence, which was contradictory of that of the prosecution as regards to the nature of the exchange, and accused electing to be dealt with summarily, the magistrate dismissed the charge. No order as to the clothing was made and an application of costs was refused. In April 1915, Alice has a New South Wales jail record, as on the 24th of February 1915, only 3 months after she was in court, she was charged with stealing at Ferris Creek and was tried at the Ferris Creek Petty Sessions. She received 6 months hard labour. Under the name Alice Adele McIntyre Woodby, she stated she was born in Scotland in 1891, so she made herself 7 years older, and she said she'd come out on the ship the Omra. On the 30th of June 1916 in the Tamworth Daily Observer, young woman's lapse sent to Long Bay. Sergeant Doran at the Tamworth Police Court on Thursday proceeded against Alice Woodbry on the information alleging that she stole 1 black silk muslin dress and 1 white lace skirt to the value of £1, the property of Annie Bridges. Sergeant Doran said he had a conversation with the defendant who said, "I will go and get the property for you and I will bring it along the road to Bridges about 5:30 this afternoon." Subsequently, the witness met the defendant between Mr. Bridges' residence and West Tamworth. She handed him a black dress and a muslin skirt. Annie Bridges deposed that the defendant was in her employ on the 21st. While in her employ, the witness missed some clothes and those produced were her property. Sergeant Sinclair said that in February she was sentenced to 6 months in Long Bay Penitentiary for stealing,
and previous to that was warned to leave Moree. The defendant was only 17 years of age, and Mr. England asked for a small fine to be imposed. She was sentenced to be imprisoned in the Long Bay Penitentiary for 3 months. On the 6th of March 1918, in the New South Wales Police Gazette, at Darlinghurst, the commitment warrant against Alice Kneef, alias Neef, alias Adele McIntyre, alias Woodby, for committing a breach of the conditions of her release on licence, has been executed by Constable Keogh, Sydney Police, and the offender lodged in the State Penitentiary in Long Bay. After her release, she married David Cook in 1918. She then married Robert Arthur Gabriel on the 22nd of May 1922 in Sydney, thus committing bigamy. On the 22nd of November 1922, at Darlinghurst, Alice Adeline Cook, alias Gabriel, alias Kneef, alias Adele McIntyre, alias Woodby, alias Woodbry, aged 24, charged that she did on the 20th of July 1918 marry David Cook, and while so married did on the 20th of May 1922 at Sydney marry Robert Gabriel. The said David Cook, being alive, has been arrested by Detective Sergeant Mitchell and Constables Sheringham, Nye and Hardy of the Sydney Police. Committed for trial at the Court of Sessions with bail allowed. Further charged with stealing articles to the value of £1.10 and £3, the property of Ivy Hardy and Florence Douglas, respectively. Sentenced to 6 weeks light labour on each charge, concurrent. By the age of 24, Alice had amassed an impressive number of aliases and at least 2 husbands. She was a habitual thief and now a convicted bigamist. In the Dubbo Liberal and Macquarie Advocate on the 17th of November 1922, Alice Adeline Cook, 24, was ordered by Mr. Edwards to stand her trial at the December Court of Sessions on a charge of bigamy. The defendant said that she left Cook, a railway employee, because he was so hard on her. On the 24th of May 1923 in the Sydney Morning Herald, this was a suit in which David Cook sought a divorce from Alice Adeline Cook, formerly Woodbry, alleging adultery with one Arthur Robert Gabriel, who has joined as co-respondent. The decree nisi was pronounced returnable in 6 months. On the 3rd of November 1927 in the Sydney Morning Herald, Gabriel versus Cook, falsely called Gabriel. This was a suit for nullity. The petitioner, Arthur Robert Gabriel, asked for a decree declaring null and void the form of ceremony of marriage he went through with Alice Adeline Cook on the 22nd of May 1922 in Sydney, according to Methodist rites. The grounds of the petition was that prior to the marriage, the respondent, under the name of Alice Woodbry, was married to David Cook, who was alive and her lawful husband. The respondent did not appear, and His Honour granted a decree for nullity as asked. On the 18th of June 1927, Alice had married Leslie Arthur Hitchin, a signalman in the Royal Navy. He was born in London. Leslie was 28 and Alice 27. They married at St Michael's Church of England in Surrey Hills. The certificate had a note that says cancelled on it. In 1951, on her father's death notice, it states that Alice is a Mrs. Clerk of Sydney. Interestingly, her sister, Elsie Florence Jane Woodbry, was the sole beneficiary of their father's will, even though their mother was still alive and Alice was still alive. It seems that Alice did not formally marry, as the 1958 census record and her death certificate still has her maiden name. She's recorded in Redfern West in 1958 under Alice Adeline Woodbry, living in Abercrombie Street. Interestingly, right next door at 192 Abercrombie Street in Redfern, there is a Rosetta Clerk. And Alice died in Balmain in 1964 at the age of 66. And a little on Alice's siblings. Her older sister, Mabel Wilhelmina Woodbry, was born in 1894 in Tenterfield. She married George F.W. Hill in Tenterfield in 1914 when she was 20. George worked on the railways, and their first child, Mary Woodbry Hill, was born on the 8th of April 1914 in Tenterfield, New South Wales, which was the year that they married. She must have been born prior to their marriage, as this child is listed in her birth certificate as Mary Woodbry, daughter of Mabel W., and there's no father listed. And then another daughter, Aileen Elizabeth Mona Hill, was born on the 2nd of April 1915. She then moved to Tasmania, and in 1920 she gave birth to a son, Kenneth Royden Alexander. On Kenneth Alexander's birth certificate, it stated that the mother was Mabel Wilhelmina Hill Woodbry. So I'm thinking that she has separated or deserted George Hill up in Tenterfield, New South Wales, and made her way down to New Norfolk. She also had Maisie in 1922, and Donald. The father of these children was Alexander. He was Scottish and was born in 1876 in Glasgow, so he was 18 years older than Mabel. His death was listed in the Launceston Examiner on the 31st of May 1934, and it said that he was a well-known resident of New Norfolk and he died suddenly at his home at the age of 56. Although I can find no marriage certificate for Mabel and Alexander, in his death notice in the Hobart Mercury, it says on the 30th of May 1934, suddenly at his residence in New Norfolk, Alexander, known as Alex, the dearly beloved husband of Mabel W. Alexander of New Norfolk, in his 59th year of age. She then married John Thomas George Kingshott in Tasmania. He was a woodcarver and they lived in New Norfolk. John was 10 years older than Mabel. They had a daughter, Elsie Lorraine Kingshott, in 1938. Mabel died on the 10th of May 1946. Her death notice was in the Muswellbrook newspaper. Mrs. Kingshott, Tasmania. The death occurred on the 10th of May at New Norfolk, Tasmania, of Mrs. Mabel W. Kingshott, eldest daughter of Mr. and Mrs. P.J. Woodbry of Bridge Street, Muswellbrook. The late Mrs. Kingshott, who was 50 years of age, was born at Tenterfield. She last visited Muswellbrook 10 years ago. The deceased is survived by her husband, 4 daughters and 2 sons, and also by 4 sisters and 3 brothers. So Elsie was only 8 when her mother died. Elsie Florence Jane Woodbury was the next sibling. She was born on the 25th of September 1896 in Roma, Queensland. She married Kenneth Roy Craa on the 27th of March 1920 at the Methodist Church in Sydney when she was 23. She'd recently come to Sydney. He had known Elsie in Tenterfield for many years. They had a daughter, Flora Joan Craa, on the 26th of July 1921 at Potts Point. She died on the 23rd of December 1973 in Sydney at the age of 77. Mary Stella Woodbry, known as Mick to the family, was a younger sister of Alice. She was born on the 10th of December 1900 in Tenterfield. She married Albert Thomas Wordsworth in Newtown in 1922 at the age of 22. Albert was 9 years older than Mary. Albert was an accountant. When they lived at Leichhardt in 1935, Mary is listed as a proprietress. In 1934, Albert pled guilty to a charge of embezzling £30, the property of the Country Press Cooperative Company. The defendant elected to be dealt with summarily and was fined £3 in default of 6 days. It was stated that until recently he was an accountant at the firm and restitution of the full amount had been made. She died in 1967 in Queensland at the age of 67. Ruby Evelyn Myrtle Woodbry was born in 1905 in Tenterfield. She married Arthur Stanley Borton in Muswellbrook in 1929. She died in 1988 in New South Wales at the age of 83. Herbert Edward Woodbry was born in 1908 in Tenterfield. An article in the Muswellbrook Chronicle in 1925 says that Herbert Woodbry, son of Mr. and Mrs. P.J. Woodbry, who joined the Royal Australian Navy 12 months ago and during that period has been on the training ship Tingira at Rose Bay and has now finished his course on that ship and has been drafted onto the HMS Brisbane. He married Sylvia Marie Morgan on the 3rd of September 1930 in Sydney. He was an accountant when they married and he was serving on the HMAS Penguin at the time of their marriage. They divorced in March 1933 and it was Herbert that took Sylvia to the divorce court. The issue was conjugal rights. And in October 1933, the divorce went through. The issue was stated as desertion by the reason of the respondent's non-compliance with the restitution order. He then married Eileen Stella Bryan in 1934 in Sydney. They had a daughter, Barbara Ann Woodbry, who died on the 3rd of March 1953 in hospital at the age of only 22. They also had a son, Edward, known as Ted. There was a court case involving Barbara Ann Woodbry's death that was outlined in the papers. On the 27th of May 1953 in the Sydney Daily Mirror, The city coroner today criticised a doctor's neglect to inform police or parents that a young girl had told him that she tried to commit suicide. He said the girl might be alive today had the doctor informed the police or the girl's parents. Barbara Ann Margaret Woodbry, 22, a stenographer from Gladesville, died on March the 3rd at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital at Camperdown from thallium poisoning willfully administered. The father of the girl, Herbert Edward Woodbry, commercial traveller of Gladesville, said his daughter had suffered ill health and had ceased to work late last year. She'd been treated by Dr. Anderson at Gladesville. Dr. Anderson informed me that she told him she had endeavoured to commit suicide by placing her head in a gas stove. That was the first I'd heard anything of that nature. The city coroner said, "It seems to me to be carrying the secrecy of the consulting room too far when in this case a young girl disclosed to her doctor that she'd attempted to commit suicide and the doctor took no steps to inform her parents or the police. An attempt to commit suicide is an offence against the law." Had Dr. Anderson informed Mr. or Mrs. Woodbry that their daughter had attempted to commit suicide some months ago, steps could perhaps have been taken to remedy her obsessions or whatever it was that caused her to take her life, and the unfortunate girl might still be alive today. Herbert Edward Woodbry said that Dr. Anderson of Gladesville had treated his daughter after she left work because of kidney trouble. On the 14th of February, he found out that his daughter had asked her mother for money to go to a chemist. The next afternoon, his daughter complained about pains in the legs and feet. Woodbry said that he called Dr. Anderson on the 16th of February when his daughter's condition deteriorated. He said she then told him that because of her health and the way she was suffering, she tried to take her own life. She told him that she'd taken a bottle of rat poison that she'd brought from the chemist. Woodbry said that Dr. Anderson had Barbara admitted on the 18th of February to the hospital where she gradually deteriorated with thallium poisoning until she died on the 3rd of March. Herbert died on the 3rd of October 1987 at the age of 79 in Tewantin in Queensland. Albert Victor Woodbry was born in 1910 in Tenterfield. He was known as Pop. He married Nellie Catherine Donaldson of Muswellbrook and formerly of Scone, and they married on the 17th of May 1931. And Colin Craig Woodbry was the youngest in the family. He was born in 1913 in Tenterfield. He took over his father's bootmaking business. Colin featured in the New South Wales Police Gazette in 1935 for stealing a valuable security, to wit, a cheque for £15 and 15 shillings of the trustees of the Protestant Alliance Friendly Society Lodge at Muswellbrook. He's described it as 21 years old, 5 foot 8 or 9 inches high, thin to medium build with square shoulders, a sallow complexion, thick dark auburn wavy hair, parted on side and brushed back, grey eyes, a rather long face, an erect carriage, well dressed in a dark brown or navy blue serge suit, collar with tie and shoes, seldom wears a hat, a bootmaker, an inveterate cigarette smoker, frequents dance halls and is fond of the company of women. And the complainant were the trustees of the Protestant Alliance Friendly Society Lodge at Muswellbrook, and the warrant was filed at Muswellbrook. So it seems we have another black sheep in the family, and there's also a pattern here between Alice and Colin, as Colin changes his name, it seems, to Colin Craig Williams. This was the name he used when he married Jean Kathleen Ritchie in Coffs Harbour in 1936 and when he enlisted in World War II at the age of 27 in September 1940. They had 2 children, Peter Craig in 1940 and also Kathleen, who died as an infant in 1938. By 1949, he was still in the trade of bootmaking, but he was living in Auburn, and he married in 1952 to Nancy Olwen Owen. They had a daughter, Kim Ellen Williams, in 1960. By 1968, he was working as a clerk, and then by 1977, he was a public servant. He died on the 25th of July, 1990, in Dorrigo.
If you are interested in sharing your story on my podcast, Family History Mysteries, please go to my Facebook page and send me a message. If you would like some assistance in filling in the gaps in your family tree to see what mysteries you solve, please get in touch. And don't forget you can have early access to episodes by subscribing, and you'll also gain access to bonus episodes.